In 1913, the Boy Scouts of America was only 3 years old. The organization was growing nationwide, and the desire of the National Council leadership was to grow the organization even further. Advertising for the Boy Scouts of America was on the rise, with billboards scheduled for more than 7,000 locations around the country. Mailings were sent to hundreds of thousands of families through their insurance company, encouraging BSA registration for policyholders' sons, and a feature-length silent film called The Making of a Scout began touring the United States in December of 1913. We'll learn more about this motion picture and how it launched the career of one of the most prolific youth literature authors in this edition of Artifact of the Week. The history of film as an art form dates back to almost the beginning of time as an extension of storytelling, literature, theater, and visual art. Projections of images date back to the 16th century, using techniques such as camera obscura to enhance stage performances. Around 1790, audiences were being entertained and frightened using a multisensory approach that included mechanical slides, projectors, superimposition, dissolves, live actors, and smoke on which projections may have been cast, odors, sounds, and even electrical shocks. These techniques were refined and advanced, allowing for creative and even educational storytelling that could appeal to a wider family audience. Newly pioneered techniques such as the use of dissolving views and the chromatrope allowed for smoother transitions between two projected images and aided in providing stronger narratives. The next major development came in the 1870s and was found in the invention of chronophotography, which was the capture of a series of still images, almost exclusively involving humans or animals performing a simple movement in front of a camera. Not initially intended to be viewed in motion, and these were typically presented as a serious, even scientific method of studying locomotion. In 1879, the zoopraxiscope was invented to display moving images captured through chronophotography. And in 1893, the electrotachyscope was invented and projected the first life-sized images on a screen for an audience. In 1889, Thomas Edison and his team began development on a device that would produce visuals to accompany the sounds produced by the phonograph. The Edison kinetoscope allowed one person at a time to view 1.5 minutes of motion picture entertainment without the synchronized sound of Edison's original vision. These proved to be very popular, with viewing parlors popping up in major cities all over the world. Between 1890 and 1910, film was rarely recognized as an art form. The upper class viewed it as a vulgar and lowbrow form of cheap entertainment, and films largely appealed to the working class and were often too short to tell any complex stories. Enter the actualities and newsreels. These were recordings of actual events or locations and were often presented with a live narrator to explain what the audience was seeing. Newsreels were essentially short documentaries containing news stories and items of topical interest. These were accompanied by live narration or live music and served as a source of current affairs, information, and entertainment. Staging of events for actualities and newsreels led to the introduction of narrative filmmaking, with the first American-made narrative film, The Execution of Mary Stuart, being produced by the Edison Company in 1895. This film also holds the distinction for one of the first uses of special effects in a film by substituting a mannequin for the actor for the final shot. By 1900, narrative filmmaking was beginning to take hold, starting in Europe and quickly spreading to the U.S. One of the leaders in this area was Edison Studios. This is also a time when specialized location to show these films became a reality. Called Nickelodeons, it was the first type of indoor exhibition space dedicated to showing projected motion pictures. The name Nickelodeon came from combining the cost of admission, a nickel, with the Greek word for a roofed-over theater. Nickelodeons flourished from about 1905 to 1915. The earliest filmmakers in the United States started on the East Coast, particularly in the Fort Lee, New Jersey area. Between 1907 and 1920s, Fort Lee became the motion picture capital of America. Film companies such as the Independent Moving Pictures Company, Peerless Picture Studio, Solax Studios, Eclair, Goodwin Pictures Corporation, Star Film, World Film Company, Biograph Studios, Fox Film Corporation, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios Incorporated, Victor Film Company, and Selznick International Pictures all had production studios in Fort Lee. Wanting to take advantage of the growing popularity of movies in the United States and their proximity to Fort Lee, the Boy Scouts of America contracted film director Edward Warren to make a film about the BSA and its impact on American boys. When the BSA contracted Warren, he was employed as a director with Solax Studios, where he is credited with directing at least 7 movies, most for European distribution. In July 1913, Warren resigned his position with Solax to direct the movie, which was produced by the Wedepicht Motion Picture Corporation and distributed by the World Film Company. Warren's previous employer, Solax, processed the film stock and conformed the final edit of the film. The film was written by R. Dinwiddie and Campbell McCullough. The original film is considered lost, meaning none of the 4 known original copies still exists in any form. The images from the film that you'll see in this video are the only known images from the original movie to still survive. The 40-minute movie tells the story of a street-tough 16-year-old boy, Tom Slade, who has to fend for himself when he and his deadbeat father are evicted by John Temple, a wealthy landowner. Temple has an effeminate son, Wilford, and a daughter, Mary, whom Tom has an interest in. Mr. Temple, his son, and Tom all share a disdain for the Boy Scout movement. Because of his interest in Mary, Tom gets a job and discovers that Scouts are as strong and tough as he is, so he decides to join the Boy Scouts in a local troop. On a camping trip, Tom sees a group of vagrants, including his father, attempting to rob the Temple home. The Scouts frighten them and the robbery is thwarted. When the gang attempts another robbery of the home, Tom is slightly wounded and one of the Temple's servants is shot. Despite the Scouts' actions and their use of a radio to summon medical help for the servant, Mr. Temple remains unimpressed with the Scouts. Later, Mr. Temple and his son get lost while on a fishing trip, and Mrs. Temple calls on the Scouts to help find her husband and son. Once the Scouts rescue the Temples, Mr. Temple changes his attitude towards the Scout, and Wilford joins the troop. The movie was shot in 2 weeks and involved 2 troops of Boy Scouts in the shooting at a cost of $25,000, which would be a little over $800,000 today. President Woodrow Wilson appeared in the film greeting Scouts near the White House. The final print of the movie used over 8,000 feet of film stock, spread over 7 reels, making it the longest film in the United States when it was released. 4 copies of the film were produced and distributed throughout the country through a direct booking system, with Scouts selling tickets in their local communities. The proceeds of the film were split, with the local council receiving 25% of the proceeds and the remaining 75% going to the distributor. Variety magazine hyped the scale: 2 regiments of Scouts on screen and multiple prints sent on the road. Others mentioned scenes tied to the White House context and national visibility, which helped the picture play as a kind of civic event wherever it toured. In 1915, to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the BSA, Edward Warren was rehired by the National Council to edit the movie down to 5 reels or 30 minutes and was re-released under the title Adventures of a Boy Scout. This image is a collection of frames from that movie that were filed by the BSA in Canada to receive a royal copyright for the 1915 version of the film. Again, Scouts sold tickets to the movie showings and staged special Scout skills demonstrations wherever the movie was shown. Following the 1915 release, the BSA wanted to extend the popularity and reach of the movie, and they reached out to Percy Keyes Fitzhugh, a youth literature author from New Jersey, and asked him to write a manuscript based on the movie. Fitzhugh accepted the assignment and wrote Tom Slade, Boy Scouts of the Moving Pictures. Over the next 15 years, Fitzhugh would write a total of 19 Tom Slade books, along with book series featuring Slade's scouting buddies Westy Martin, Roy Blakely, and Pee Wee Harris, for a total of more than 70 Boy Scout novels published. Pee Wee Harris is still with us today, as the character was adopted into a cartoon in Boy's Life or Scout Life magazine, first appearing in the September 1952 issue. In 1941, Fitzhugh received a letter from then 19-year-old Edith Carr. Fitzhugh replied to her, "To answer your question about the first Tom Slade story, this was originally a photo play, and the scenario, as they call it, was given to me to put in the form of a story. I did not follow the movie script very closely, and there was indeed no resemblance between the story and the screen version. The photo play has long since been forgotten, but the book was popular for many years and became the initial story in the long series of Tom Slade books." Fitzhugh included a photo of himself along with the letter. The 1913 movie Making of a Scout and the 1915 re-release Adventures of a Boy Scout were essentially a recruiting poster brought to life. The films framed scouting as an answer to preventing juvenile delinquency in urban boys, and the story was a melodrama with a moral backbone, discipline, service, and citizenship turned into action scenes featuring Boy Scouts. The impact of these movies was extended through the writings of Percy Fitzhugh, and many of his scouting novels are available today through Project Gutenberg. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Join us next time as we learn more about Percy Fitzhugh's story and how his novels became the literature of scouting, setting a tone that was adventurous, moral, and unmistakably American through the collection of the National Scouting Museum and Artifact of the Week.